countries. And developed countries must honor their commitments to double finance for adaptation to at least $40 billion this year. And the Loss and Damage Fund needs to be capitalized with significant contributions. Second, a people's plan requires a laser focus on job creation and employment. In every country, governments and the private sector must join forces to promote decent work, living wages, and pathways for workers to transition from the informal economy to jobs in the green, digital, and care economies. Investments in training, skills development, and lifelong learning are essential. As called for by the Global Digital Compact adopted last year, countries should focus on closing the digital divide, achieving universal digital connectivity, and ensuring all people can gain skills in digital technology and artificial intelligence. Creating and sustaining jobs also requires countries to diversify their economies and enhance local processing and innovation to add value and compete in global trade. Any job creation efforts must also ensure women have equal access to jobs while increasing support for care economies. Throughout, we need to strengthen labor protections so profits never come at the expense of workers' rights. Third, a people's plan requires financing. At June's Financing for Development Conference in Sevilla, leaders committed to unlocking more finance for developing countries. National governments must lead the way by mobilizing their own domestic resources. And we also need to triple the lending power of multilateral development banks that need to be bigger and bolder, and more able to leverage private finance for developing countries. We also need to ease debt burdens with new instruments to reduce borrowing costs and risks and speed up support for countries facing debt distress. The global financial architecture must be reformed so it better represents today's world and the needs of developing countries. Developing countries need and deserve stronger participation at the decision-making table across global financial institutions. And global economic governance must become more inclusive, representative, equitable, and effective. Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Excellencies. Enfin, un plan.
Finally, a plan designed for the people to bring them together. Too many people have been left behind, in particular women, minorities, migrants and refugees, elder persons, indigenous peoples, disabled persons and young people. Many are subject to prejudice, threats, poor treatment, and even demonstrable acts of violence, be this at home, in their workplaces, in the streets, or online. Governments must defend and protect democratic values, ensuring that the voices of all people, including the most vulnerable, whatever be their age or background, be heard. They must continue to lift obstacles to the participation of women, from boards in businesses to political power, and eliminate all forms of discrimination and gender-based violence. There is a need to focus on the needs for a more active presence of women in new technologies. There is a need for AI algorithms not to become bastions of male chauvinism. At all times and in all places, human voices, human rights, at all times and in all places, human rights will remain our compass and will show us the way towards justice and a future peace for all people. Your Majesties, Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, this summit is placed under the sign of hope, hope with collective action. There's a need to mobilize political will and necessary financial resources to pursue the voyage that we have started together and did so 30 years ago in Copenhagen. We have the Doha Declaration, and thanks to this, we are going to achieve this far-reaching plan because humanity is calling for it and deserves it. Thank you.
I thank the Secretary General. I invite His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Emir of the State of Qatar, in his capacity as host country, to address the Assembly.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, most compassionate, most merciful. Your Excellency, the President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency, the Secretary General, Your Majesty, Your Highness, Your Excellencies, peace be upon you. At the outset, I would like to welcome you all to Doha, wishing you a pleasant stay. The State of Qatar takes pride in hosting this summit, which is held 30 years after the first summit in Copenhagen in 1995. This is an occasion to reiterate the spirit of solidarity and international cooperation, to address challenges that hinder economic development and slows down human development, a matter that threatens social security. We do believe in the importance of collective work on matters that should not cause divergence. And we are keen to enhance social development and to support international efforts to eradicate poverty, increase job opportunities, and to take all efforts necessary to uphold human dignity to achieve a better and more equitable future for all. In this occasion, we do commend the efforts made by Mr. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, which represent his interest in developing the work of the United Nations organization. We would like also to thank the DESA at the United Nations for the efforts made towards the coordination and organization of this summit. Dear guests, social development is not a choice, it's an existential necessity, and whilst we celebrate this year the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, we should take the opportunity of this summit to reiterate and to recommit ourselves to the Charter of the United Nations and multilateral efforts, together with doubling down on our efforts to enshrine social development as a main foundation for security and stability for all. At the national level, the State of Qatar has attached special importance to social development and has achieved clear progress according to the indications issued and published by competent international organizations, and we work on improving the quality of life, welfare, and prosperity, in addition to developing education, economic empowerment, health and family care, as well as social protection. The State of Qatar, through the Ministry of Family and Social Development, has launched its 2024-2025 strategy under the slogan "From Care to Empowerment," which is based on creating a community and a society that is based on the equality of opportunities, and which comes in line with the 2030 vision of the state. At the international level, we are cognizant of the fact that challenges hinder social development as poverty and social inequality and unemployment. All this calls upon us to make consolidated efforts, and we cooperate closely with the United Nations in this regard, and we have spared no efforts towards honoring our undertakings and our commitments towards this goal. The State of Qatar will continue to be an active partner in the international community, and we will continue to support all efforts of social development through the aids and contributions made by Qatar to several countries and societies through the Qatar Development Fund and the Qatar Charity Association. Dear guests, the bare minimum that we need in order to show seriousness in our addressing all these challenges, such as challenges related to environment and human rights, is to uphold our commitments. When it comes to social development, this needs to translate the commitments that we have made as countries in the Copenhagen Declaration. This should be translated into reality by addressing the gaps in the implementation of those commitments, and to give priority to out-of-the-box and creative solutions, in addition to building partnerships and to be persistent on the road of achieving the 2030 Agenda. The Doha Declaration that was adopted in this summit is the fruit of relentless efforts and unwavering work, as well as consultations that were held in New York, and it is an ambitious document towards the achievement of the desired social development. And in this regard, we would like to commend the efforts of Belgium and Morocco and the United Nations for their efforts towards the facilitation of intergovernmental consultations and negotiations. And we are confident that the Doha Declaration, which reiterates and stresses the moral and socio-economic vision of social development that is based on human dignity and human rights, as well as equality and peace, will give impetus and momentum that accelerates the achievement of the 2030 Agenda, and this will represent a roadmap and a robust foundation to address all social development issues, especially poverty, unemployment, and social exclusion. It's impossible to achieve social development in any societies without peace and stability, and we do believe that constant peace and not temporary settlements is just peace. And it's very obvious, it goes without saying, that the Palestinian people need all forms of aid to be able to recover from the devastation that was caused by the Israeli occupation and the apartheid system in Palestine. We call upon the international community to double down on its efforts and to provide support to the Palestinian people for reconstruction and to secure the basic needs for this resilient people until justice is administered and until they manage to exercise their legitimate rights on their territories. When it comes to peace and stability, when it comes to peace and stability, I would like to conclude by saying and by mentioning that we were shocked by the atrocities that were committed in Al-Fashir in the Sudan, where we, in need for another piece of evidence to recognize that any manipulation of stability in countries will eventually lead to such shocks and catastrophes and carnage. The Sudan has been going through this carnage and manslaughter for 2.5 years. It's high time we stopped this carnage. We need to achieve a political solution that achieves the territorial integrity and stability of the Sudan. Dear guests, our success will only be measured by our ability to represent and to translate our commitments to tangible procedures which are translated into social development for all, especially in developing countries. And together we can transform this summit into an important juncture that gives rise to steps that would eventually contribute to transferring and translating our slogans of peace and prosperity into a lived reality. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate my welcoming of you to Doha, and I wish that this summit would lead to its desired goals. Thank you, and peace be upon you.
I thank the Emir of the State of Qatar for his speech and for hosting this summit. I give the floor to His Excellency Lok Bahadur Tapar, President of the Economic and Social Council.
Madam President, Your Highness, Amir of the State of Qatar, heads of the state and government, honorable ministers, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and privilege for me to join in the opening of the Second World Summit for Social Development. I thank the State of Qatar for hosting this summit, and I am grateful to His Highness, the Amir of the State of Qatar, for his leadership and hospitality. I also thank my colleagues, His Excellency Omar Hilale, permanent representative of Morocco, and Her Excellency Sophia De Smith, permanent representative of Belgium, for skillfully steering the negotiation that led to the Doha political declarations. Their work has resulted in a balanced and forward-looking declaration that embodies our shared commitment to advancing social development. Excellencies, since the Copenhagen Summit 30 years ago, the world has seen extraordinary social and economic progress. People are healthier, they are more educated, and they are more connected than ever before. Yet, we are still far from reaching the SDGs. Only 35% of the SDG target are on the track, and governments are grappling with diminishing opportunities for meaningful employment, widening inequalities, and growing insecurities. On this, the Doha Declarations is a milestone. It underscores the urgency of strengthening the social dimension of social development. And it calls for actions on three interrelated priorities: ending poverty, ensuring full and productive employment and decent work for all, and promoting social inclusion. Excellencies, over 800 million people still live in extreme poverty. In addition, billions live very close to the poverty line. Even a minor shock, a sudden illness, an unexpected expense, the loss of a job, or a climate-induced disasters can send them into poverty. Informal employment continues to affect over 80% of workers in Africa and 70% of workers in Asia. Income and wealth are increasingly concentrated at the top. Today, the world's richest 1% of the populations own more wealth than 95% of humanity combined. Nearly 2 billion people globally remain uncovered or inadequately protected social protections, without the safety nets that cushion shocks, preserve dignity, and enable resilience in the face of crisis. and societies are increasingly divided and polarized. Confidence and trust in institutions seem to be eroding. Distrust fueled by misinformation and disinformation fractures social cohesion and undermines our ability to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Addressing these myriad issues lies at the heart of the mandate of the Economic and Social Council. Excellencies, the 80th anniversary of the Council is an opportunity to renew our joint commitment to its enduring values, cooperation among nations, inclusive development, and the dignity of every person. Those principles have guided the Economic and Social Council since 1945. They continue to define our work today. The 5-year review process agreed in the Doha declarations provides an important opportunity to measure progress and renew momentum. The General Assembly will lead that effort, and the ECOSOC system will support it by bringing together governments, UN systems, stakeholders to translate shared commitments into actions. The role of the commissions for social development will be pivotal in this regard. We should spare no effort in establishing ECOSOC forums and segments provide important opportunities to connect global policy with actions on the ground. Excellencies, under Nepal's presidency, ECOSOC is advancing global cooperation on food systems, financing for development, climate resilience, and digital inclusion and youth entrepreneurship. Issues that underpin poverty, education, decent work, and social inclusion. Our policy guidance support implementations at the local, national, and regional levels, strengthening the government's efforts. The UN system's analytical and evidence-based support runs throughout the Council's work, and providing space for the diverse voices of stakeholders, including youth, women, and persons with disabilities. We ensure that our deliberations are rooted in the realities on the ground. These strengths will be fully mobilized to advance the commitments we make here in Doha. ECOSOC will continue to work with member states, the UN systems, and partners to ensure that the Doha declarations translate into tangible progress in people's lives. Let us carry forward the spirit of Doha with unity of purpose and shared determination to build societies rooted in dignity, opportunity, and inclusion for all. I thank you.
I thank the President of the Economic and Social Council. We've heard the last speaker in this opening segment. Before giving the floor to the first speaker on the list of speakers, delegations are reminded that statements are limited to 5 minutes. I would like to appeal to speakers to deliver their statements at a reasonable pace so that interpretation into the other official languages may be provided properly. As members are aware, pursuant to Resolution 78/318, in addition to the plenary meetings, the summit will have 2 high-level roundtables. The first roundtable will start this afternoon at 3 p.m. I invite, now my microphone is not, I invite I invite His Excellency Abdul Latif Jamal Rashid, President of the Republic of Iraq, on behalf of the Group of 77 and China, to address the Assembly.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegations, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to deliver this statement on behalf of Group 77 and China. First and foremost, the group takes this opportunity to thank the co-chairs of the intergovernmental process and the permanent representatives of the Kingdom of Morocco and Belgium for their leadership, tireless efforts, and thoughtful guidance throughout this process. The group also conveys its sincere appreciations to the State of Qatar, its leadership, and people of the generosity, warm hospitality, and excellent arrangement that have enriched our deliberation at this historic summit. We gather today in Doha with great hope that this meeting will inspire concrete progress in advancing the welfare and dignity of all people. As we approach 2030, the international community stands at a pivotal moment, one that calls for resolve to translate our commitments to tangible outcome in the lives of of all our nations. Though our path and achievements may differ, our shared aspiration for more just and secure world unite us. Let us this summit be a step towards a deeper cooperation and solidarity among nations in pursuit of that common vision. Against this background, this background, the group wishes to emphasize the following points. First, we must redouble our collective efforts and place equal emphasis on the three pillars of social development to achieve the commitment made 30 years ago. Addressing the existing gaps and inadequate means of implementation remains a pressing challenge. The principle of common but differentiated responsibilities must remain central, as the international cooperation and solidarity are indispensable and to addressing these challenges. Second, the group underscores the urgent need to confront persistent social development challenges by reducing uncertainty, inequality, and insecurity, while upholding human dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedom for all. Third, the group welcomes the measures undertaken by member states to promote equal opportunity, inclusion, and social justice, and reaffirm its full commitment to ensuring that all individuals are empowered to participate fully in social, economic, and political life. Fourth, the group welcomes the inclusion of racism as a cross-cutting issue in the outcome text, highlighting the need to stop up our efforts to fight against all forms of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerances. However, the group regrets that genuine progress in addressing this enduring scourge still falls behind our aspiration. Fifth, the group stresses that migration is an ember of development and recognize the positive contribution of migrants to inclusive growth and sustainable development in countries of the origin. Transit and destination. We acknowledge the importance of addressing the nexus between international migration and social development in a comprehensive and balanced manner. Six, while technology is an essential tool for achieving development goals, access to its benefits remains unequal. The group, therefore, emphasized the urgent need for concerted action to bridge the growing digital divide. Seventh, the group underscores that social development cannot advance while many developing countries continue to face UCM, a unilateral coercive measures, while directly and negatively affect the well-being of their people. The group reaffirms that measures impede in economic and social progress and calls for the complete elimination. In conclusion, the Group 77 and China reaffirms our shared commitment to balancing people at the center of development. Let Doha mark a renewed resolve to act with unity, compassion, and determination so that the promises we make today become a living reality for all. Let us leave no one behind. I thank you for listening to these comments. I have the second speech on behalf of Iraq. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Deliver my speech on behalf of Iraq in Arabic.
Your Excellency Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Your Highness Prince of the State of Qatar, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, may the peace and mercy and blessings of God be upon you. At the outset, I wish to convey my sincerest thanks to the State of Qatar for its generous hosting of this summit, which is held at a very critical juncture as we are about to launch a new era which requires a renovation of international commitment to social justice and the strengthening of decent work and the establishment of more just societies. Equally, I wish to address my thanks to the United Nations and its specialized agencies for its unstinting support for member states in their implementation of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, and for its active partnership alongside Iraq on our developmental path. Equally, we thank all participating states for efforts made in preparing the Doha Declaration, which represents a quantum leap towards a strengthening, comprehensive, inclusive and sustainable social development. Ladies and gentlemen, our meeting today under the second summit is held over 30 years since the Copenhagen summit in 1995. It constitutes a new opportunity to review achievements and to proceed with a forward-looking attempt to contain the situation and to preempt the impact of highly complex crises, social crises, climate crises, etc., which necessitate social justice. We firmly believe that investing in humans is the optimal path that leads to justice. Social justice is an existential requirement for decent life. Discrepancy in opportunities, economic opportunities, climate threats, drafts, poverty, etc., all mean that the international community must assume yet a bigger responsibility in upholding the very principles that underpin social justice. In the aftermath of decades of war and terrorism in Iraq, we firmly stand on this path towards social development. Through reducing poverty, improving education, healthcare, and empowering women and youth, and strengthening the participation by persons with disabilities and the elderly in the public sphere. Iraq, during the recent years, has made a major progress in the reform of the social protection system. We moved from humanitarian assistance in times of crisis towards a more sustainable and just system that is underpinned by human rights and social security. Ladies and gentlemen, Iraq ratified in 2023 the ILO Convention 102 on social security floors, thus upholding our international commitments. We made tangible progress in terms of social protection over the last 4 years. Poverty rates have decreased. This is telling of the impact of structural reform in favor of social development. We have expanded the basis of beneficiaries in a tangible manner, which now it reached 140% of those benefiting from social security, in addition to an increase in the amounts dedicated to social security. As we move from support to productivity, we have launched a unified program that benefits tens of thousands of individuals, in addition to support to small and medium-sized enterprises. This led to a reduction in unemployment rates and empowered women economically. The social development is a collective responsibility that includes civil society and the youth, particularly as we joined in 2024 the ranks of those countries with a large presentation or portion of youth among its population. This prompted us to improve job opportunities, the development of skills, and the focus being placed on entrepreneurship in favor of youth and women. As to climate change and its impact, direct impact on social development, we suffer from water rarity and desertification. Therefore, we launched the Green Iraq initiative that seeks to address such challenges through various projects of renewed and clean energy. Between 2024 and 2023, we are focusing on the increase of renewable energy share and a clean energy share, in addition to an increased participation by the private sector in this effort, and a focus on agriculture to improve air quality and climate adaptation. We have also adopted a comprehensive strategy focusing on agricultural infrastructure and the improvement of food quality and diversity to attain self-sufficiency when it comes to food production. Equally, we are linking social protection to the agricultural sector through support to small agricultural businesses and medium-sized agricultural businesses, with a focus on female-led businesses and a focus on infrastructure in the rural areas. Social development cannot be attained without economic, cultural development. Therefore, we are focusing on good governance and enhancing democratic participation and countering corruption, as these underpin any society that seeks to attain welfare and prosperity. We are committed to transparency through the implementation of the digital transformation program and the unification of our databases, which improves our targeting of corrupt individuals when it comes to making sure that benefits reach those that are in dire need for them. We equally focus on healthcare and health protection, always in line with UN standards and principles. Iraq has adopted a national development plan covering 2024-2028, in addition to a strategy for the alleviation of poverty and the Iraqi Vision for Sustainable Development 2030 and the 2050 Iraq vision, in addition to a national employment vision to guarantee decent work and secured work for all. Challenges social development is faced with are well entrenched. These include inter alia, migration, climate change, among others. This necessitates comprehensive and joint work. We have established specialized and ad hoc funds to address such challenges and to support development at the governorate level. Countering poverty, corruption, and other aspects that plague our societies, including illegal migration, drugs, etc., will undoubtedly be conducive towards improving the livelihood and living standards of our citizens around the world. Iraq stands ready to support the international community in establishing a more just and equal world where human dignity and rights are always upheld. We are fully confident that this summit will allow for such a new just and sustainable social development. We reiterate our thanks to the State of Qatar for hosting this summit and the United Nations for their efforts and the international community for its support. And we look forward to fruitful outcomes of the current summit. Thank you very much.
I thank the President of the Republic of Iraq. May I remind delegation again that statements are limited to 5 minutes. There's a timer. I invite His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, on behalf of the African Group, to address the Assembly.
Madam President, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the African Group, I extend warm appreciation to you, Madam President, and to the State of Qatar for hosting this historic summit, a moment to renew our shared promise 30 years after Copenhagen to place people at the heart of development. We associate ourselves fully with the statement delivered by the delegation of Iraq on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. Excellencies, 3 decades after the first World Summit on Social Development, the world can point to real progress in reducing poverty, improving food security, expanding education, health, and social protection. Yet, persistent and widening inequality within and among nations continue to erode these gains. Global systems of trade, finance, and technology remain unequal and exclusionary. Poverty, unemployment, and social exclusion have been and remain the defining challenges of our time. Confronting them is not charity, it is justice for humanity. Across many sub-Saharan and sub-regions in Africa and Western Asia, hunger is rising, growth is slowing down, and vulnerability is deepening. Health and education systems are under strain, and energy deficits hold back opportunity. Beyond income, inclusion depends on access to essential services that empower individuals and protect dignity. Universal access to affordable and quality health care is not a luxury. It is a right for every human being. Housing insecurity, manifesting through homelessness, overcrowding, and substandard shelter, continue to breed inequality. As housing costs outpace wages, affordable housing must become a cornerstone of social development. Informal and precarious employment remains yet another of the gravest obstacles to stability and growth, particularly in low and middle income countries where millions live close to the poverty line. Ladies and gentlemen, the digital divide is emerging as one of the greatest barriers of our time. Access to affordable connectivity, access to devices, and digital skills must become universal. Education must include every learner, empower every teacher, and reach every community, including persons with disability. As Africa, we believe that transforming informal sectors, enhancing productive capacity, and expanding access to global markets requires stronger international cooperation in line with the Addis Ababa Action Agenda and the right to development. We therefore call for comprehensive reform of the international financial architecture to make it fair, transparent, and responsive to the needs of developing nations and its people. We urge decisive action on debt distress, and progress towards United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation. We also underscore our call for a UN Convention in sovereign debt. Distinguished colleagues, the Copenhagen Declaration gave us a timeless framework built on 3 pillars: the eradication of poverty, decent work for all, and social integration. Grounded in equity, solidarity, and human dignity, these pillars remain our compass. We therefore welcome the Doha Declaration on Social Development, a renewed global pledge to translate principle into action and to build cohesive and resilient societies for generations ahead. We commend the co-facilitators, the permanent representative of Morocco and Belgium, for their leadership in guiding this important progress. This summit, distinguished colleagues, must rekindle genuine dialogue, restore trust, and reaffirm multilateralism as the anchor of collective progress. We must amplify the voices of those living in poverty and vulnerability and ensure that developing countries, most of them in Africa, are fairly represented across all multilateral institutions. Accordingly, the African Group reiterates its demand for 2 permanent and 2 non-permanent seats for Africa on the UN Security Council with full rights and privileges. True social development cannot thrive without historical justice and equal representation. The African Union has declared 2025 the year of justice for Africans and the people of African descent through reparations. This is a defining step towards justice and healing for Africa and its diaspora, calling for accountability for the crimes of slavery, colonialization, apartheid, and exploitation that caused lasting human and environmental harm. We also reiterate the importance of the high-level General Assembly meeting in September 2026 to mark the 25th anniversary of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action and invite all partners to support its successful implementation within the second decade for people of African descent. Together, let us envision a future that is inclusive, resilient, and just. A world free of hunger, poverty, disease, racism, and inequality. A world where prosperity is shared, the digital divide is bridged, and trust in multilateralism is renewed. I thank you. Allow me, Madam President, having just addressed this assembly on behalf of the African Group, I now have the honor, with your kind indulgence, to deliver Kenya's national statement. In the years since Copenhagen, the world has made tremendous advances in science, technology, and innovation, transforming lives and transforming economies. Yet amid this progress, poverty, inequality, unemployment, and social exclusion persist, and in far too many places they have deepened. In Kenya, through our bottom-up economic transformation agenda, we have charted a deliberate roadmap to confront these challenges head-on, and I am proud to share a few of its key highlights. We recognize that education is the most powerful equalizer in society. That is why Kenya has fully transitioned to the competence-based education and training system that emphasizes practical skills, innovation, and lifelong learning. Equally, to make higher education equitable, we introduced a student-centered funding model that guarantees access to quality education for every learner, regardless of their social or economic background. In 3 years, we have hired 76,000 new teachers, a number that will reach 100,000 by January 2026, improving the teacher-to-learner ratio from 1 to 45 to 1 to 29, putting us on course to meet UNESCO's 1 to 25 benchmark by 2027. We have also rapidly expanded technical and vocational training institutions across the country, ensuring that learners gain market-ready skills aligned with the needs of industry and entrepreneurship. Beyond education, we're empowering citizens economically through initiatives like the Financial Inclusion Fund, popularly known as the Hustler Fund. To date, the fund has disbursed Kenya shillings 80 billion, an equivalent of US dollars 615 million, to 26 million Kenyans. It now accounts for more than 9.5 million repeat borrowers, including 5 million individuals who have successfully restored their creditworthiness through consistent repayment, enabling them not only to re-enter the formal credit market, but also access higher borrowing limits and better financial terms. At the same time, together with partners, we are launching programs such as the National Youth Opportunity Towards Advancement Project. Over the next 5 years, it will reach 1 million young Kenyans, training them in skills that are on demand, financing startups, and enabling access to government procurement opportunities. We are equally committed to protecting the most vulnerable members of our society, including the elderly, orphans, widows, and persons living with disability. Through our National Safety Net program, commonly known as Inua Jamii, what began as a modest monthly support to 500 households has now expanded to reach more than 1.7 million families across the country. Madam President, Excellencies, through the Affordable Housing Program, we are delivering much-needed shelter while at the same time creating jobs and fostering inclusion. Today, over 230,000 housing units are under construction nationwide, employing more than 340,000 Kenyans and expanding opportunities for local artisans and small businesses. We are also expanding pathways for labor mobility through bilateral agreements with partner countries, like here in this great country of Qatar, where over 70,000 Kenyan nationals are proudly working and earning a decent living and contributing to inclusion back at home. In just 3 years, over 400,000 Kenyans have secured jobs abroad, sending home remittances that support families and strengthen our economy. In the digital economy, nearly 2 million Kenyans have been trained in digital literacy, and over 300,000 young people have accessed digital jobs in e-commerce, business process outsourcing, and innovation hubs. Through reforms in health, ladies and gentlemen, the number of Kenyans with medical insurance has grown from 8 million in 2023 to 27.2 million today, ensuring that no one is denied health due to inability to pay. In summary, Excellencies, Kenya's experience affirms that people-centered policies deliver transformative results. Yet, in an interconnected world, national action alone cannot overcome global inequalities. It is therefore incumbent upon us today to stand together with renewed resolve to confront and dismantle the entrenched structures that enable global exclusion and perpetuate inequality. Regrettably, Madam President, I note that this Doha summit convenes at a time when global solidarity is in advancing social development has weakened considerably. 30 years ago, in Copenhagen, the world spoke with one accord and acted with common purpose. Today, however, that sense of shared conviction has significantly dimmed. Faced with new and complex crises, from climate shocks and conflict to unequal trade and debt distress, nations are too often divided by competing interests, inward-looking nationalism, and short-term calculations. We witnessed it in the inequitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, in the unmet pledges in the climate finance, and in global systems that privilege power over partnerships. The consensus that once bound us together in Copenhagen is fraying. The world risks retreating into isolation at a time when cooperation should be a priority. Excellencies, as the UN at 80 initiative reforms process unfolds, the time will soon come for all of us to make critical choices about the mandates and structures of the United Nations. In doing so, we must resist the temptation to elevate one pillar of the UN at the expense of others. The United Nations was founded on a holistic vision of delivering global peace and security, human rights, and development. These are the three inseparable, indispensable pillars that together sustain global stability and human dignity. I have no doubt in my mind that while the UN must remain the foremost guardian of global peace, it must also be a catalyst for prosperity and a champion of human dignity everywhere and anywhere. The Doha Summit must therefore renew our shared resolve to act decisively, both as individual nations and as a united global community, to eradicate poverty, create decent work, and advance social inclusion as the surest path towards a world that is truly resilient, inclusive, peaceful, and sustainable. I thank you for your attention.